Welcome, guys, to a brand new Poker Player podcast. I'm your host, Andreas, and today I'm joined by a poker player, first and foremost, previously a lawyer, has been doing poker commentary, working in poker content, award-winning Twitter content as well for herself. Welcome, Jamie Kerstetter, to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thanks. I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing great. For you, it's a little bit early still, but now we're like in different time zones. I'm happy that we could find the time to make this podcast happen. What I want to start first with is basically to go a little bit in depth in where your background is and what your poker story is. Like, how did you get into poker?
I played a little. I'm from the Atlantic City area, so casinos and stuff was like a little bit. Like it wasn't as scary to me as it would be to most women trying to play. But I played a little when I was in Atlantic City, and then I moved to Michigan for law school, and there were some Detroit casinos. Also, when I was in law school, I started playing in a game with a bunch of other like aspiring lawyers, and while I was not getting the A in class because it was like super competitive, it was like one person out of 100 would get the A. I could beat those guys at poker. So for me, that was like extremely satisfying to be good at a game versus smart people who were probably better than me at almost everything else. And that like really got me to love poker. And I started playing a little on party poker and playing sit and goes and stuff like that. Once I graduated law school, I got a good job at this firm I thought I was going to work at forever. They ended up, it was during the banking crisis, so they ended up laying off all the first and second year attorneys, and I was like, oh no. And then I just played a ton of poker. That was basically like, I don't have anything to do. I'm used to working infinite hours per week, so I just threw myself into poker. I read, at that time, it was hard to find really good strategy content anywhere. It wasn't like, you'd be like, all right, I'm going to work with solvers now. So I ended up just going to Barnes & Noble and bought like 6 poker books and just studied it like it was a subject in school. And it was good enough at the time to make me some money. So
yeah, that is one very interesting element to me, is that whole poker smart thing. Because you just described like you would have that feeling that these other people in law school, they would outperform you in terms of studying, but that you felt really great that you could outsmart them at the poker table. Like, what do you think is it that is in your quality? What do you think makes up for a great poker player that you can beat the others that are playing poker against you? Like, what do you think immediately gave you the ability to beat them?
I want to qualify this by saying this is how it used to be, right? Like 10 years ago, if you sat down and you paid more attention, you had that like competitive drive to figure out, once you played a hand a certain way, is that the best way to play it? What if I had done this? What do I think this guy would have done back? Even just thinking like that made me better than those guys, because they were just like, gamble. Oh, and like other people would say, oh man, like, oh, you've had aces twice and I haven't had aces today. And like they'd get bogged down with that. And I would just be thinking, all right, I think I could make more money if I do this. And like, what if I'd done that? And just like thinking in terms of, instead of being results oriented, thinking in terms of like, I think I could have actually played that better, and just being a little more analytical with how I was playing at the time. That was it. You didn't have, there weren't these like great poker minds in my law school game. It was just about like trying to be good at that game. And just like trying to think a little more. And I was just like very consistent. And same thing when I would go to the casino, I'm like, I had no business winning. I put 20 hours a week, maybe max, into playing and studying and thinking about it, and that's it. But at the time, poker was booming, and that was more than other people were doing. They were, fruit fly. That's more than other people were doing. So I guess that was it, just putting in slightly more thought into the game than other people when they were thinking of it as gambling.
Yeah, okay. So the two elements that I see that you mentioned is, first of all, the mindset aspect, of course, not worrying about like how many aces you get. And then the second thing is to consider that you're being wrong, like having an openness towards like what strategic options are, non-result orientedness, basically, right? I also have like my first memories with poker, and I was winning also right away in some free rolls against other people. And for me, a third element was pattern recognition. I think Florian mentions it's a lot as well, that it's like one of his strengths. Would you say like pattern recognition was also really important in your games when you started out?
Yeah, I think that's really important for sizing up your opponents too. If there's some guy who, like, I would notice there were people I played with every single week, if someone's making it 10 pre-flop when they have aces and they're making it 15 pre-flop when they have garbage, I would notice that because I loved poker and I was watching everything. Also, there was one guy in the game that I would talk to, and I don't think other people would do that. I was just like, man, I think Brad is like way too loose in this spot. And we would talk about that and like size up other people. And it was a small game. It's not like I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like heist these people for thousands of dollars. It was like $20 buy-in with rebuys. But I wanted to win. And like I'm paying $50K a year to go to that law school. I'm not actually concerned about the money in the game. But it was like very satisfying to beat people I thought were very smart. And like, so I guess that's part of it too, is just like the competitive aspect of it, where I'm like, I want to win at this game. I don't want to just like play this for fun.
Sure, I think that's how it all starts out. For me at the beginning, it wasn't necessarily money either. It was just like I wanted to win. And how was that? A lot of people out there listening to this, they have similar things with like their parents, right? Because like, you know, the expectations of others are so important to us human beings that sometimes we will not pursue something like poker. So especially because you're a woman and a lot of women will not play poker, like what do you think was different for you that you ended up playing anyway because of your parents' concerns? Like what made you then, you know, just because they enjoyed it, and why do you think others aren't doing that?
Yeah, I've been super into sports. Like I played Division I soccer and ran track at Rutgers, and I like needed to replace that with something. So I did feel pressure. I felt pressure from my mom, especially to just kind of like give it up, go make sure I'm a lawyer and successful and stable and all that. But my drive to be competitive at something, like it was so ingrained in me that I don't think it mattered. Like I did face a lot of, it was tough. You go home for the holidays and like my siblings are kind of crushing their own respective fields and they're very stable and they have families and all this. And me, I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. And it was hard for me at first, but now I feel like I value my own opinion at the age of 37 as much as I value my mom's. You know, at 21, it's harder. Like I valued her life experience and felt like, okay, she is trying to help me. Like this is a thing where I know she has my best interest in mind, and I would take her opinion very, very like strongly. Where now I'm like I still once in a while she'll be like, oh, are you sure you don't want to have kids? You sure you don't want to do this and that? I'm just like, I don't know, like maybe, but I also value how I feel about my life, how I want it to go. And I think it's harder for younger people because you are used to them being an authority figure and having your best interest and telling you what to do and guiding you. And so I think that is hard. And I think it is harder for women too, because there's also like societal pressure. You feel like you're doing the wrong thing. When you walk into a casino and you see all dudes and you go buy your chips and you sit at the table and they look at you kind of funny, like, what are you doing here? And then you're like, what am I doing here? Like, it does feel weird to do that. But I think for me, like, the drive from sports carried over. I needed some outlet for it, and poker took the place of it. And so I was too committed to playing it to listen to people who were trying to like deter me.
Yeah, as you said, not just the parents. And you said that also in another podcast that your mom was so proud that you did law school, and you know, it's like, but now I'm playing poker also, or I actually want to do this. And like, how do you find the courage to actually value your own opinion almost more in that matter of your life, right? That you consider what the other person is saying, your parents, but that in the end you're really listening to yourself. I think that is a skill that has to be learned even in your 20s, 30s, sometimes even later. It's just not an easy thing to do. For me, it was totally the same. Like it took me like until I was like 25, 26, and I finished with teaching with a degree, and then I taught for like 1 year, and I realized like that I have to do this poker thing full time now. I want to see what I can do in this industry. And I want to go full all in. When was it time for you when you actually, you mentioned you were working at a law firm, right? And then you had like a part-time job, and then they wanted to offer you a full-time job, and then you kind of have to say, well, no, I'm going to...
Yeah, that was the worst. I thought that was the perfect... I was so excited. So I thought, for one thing, everyone kind of cautions you when you play poker that, oh, make sure you don't have too big a gap in your resume. It's going to be really hard to explain. And you go back that, oh, you've been playing poker and you haven't been working. So I always had that in the back of my head the couple years that I was like really throwing myself into poker. And I hadn't had any reason to like apply for a job. I was doing fine. I was not getting rich, but I was doing fine. And I'm like, all right, whenever I want to go back to law, I'll go back and I'll apply. And I'm sure it'll be a huge uphill battle because people all said gaps in your resume are terrible. I got this email from this like recruiter that said, there's a tax lawyer, like estate planning lawyer job that's part-time, that's from the area like that you had been working in. I'm like, all right, I'll throw a resume to them. I did that. I get an interview the next week. I hit it off super well with the 3 partners at the firm, and they hired me that day, like on the spot. So all the stuff is bullshit. Everyone is going from their own experience of, hey, it's really hard to do. It's like, based on what though? It's your one life experience, tiny sample size. So I actually had no trouble getting my second job, and after a very short time working with them, their firm was growing, and they said, "Great news! We're gonna give you full time instead of part time doing." And a normal person would say, "Oh, that's amazing! Like it's so hard in this market to have like a full time job doing exactly what they want." But for me, nightmare. I wanted to play poker. I wanted to work 20 hours at this law firm, have a steady income, have that be the thing that makes my mom relax. You know, just, hey, I'm okay, I'm doing this thing, and then maybe I'll go play a WPT every once in a while. Maybe I'll go play 5-10 on the weekends, or when I have my like 4 days straight because I wasn't working every day at that firm. It was perfect, and I wish that it had happened to me now, because I would have said no thanks. I would have said 20 hours a week is great. Maybe you need to hire another part-time attorney if you really need more work done. But at the time, I found it really hard. I knew they wanted me to go full-time, and I found it hard to say no. And that's what led me to quitting a year later. I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, saying no also ultimately, and then having that fear in the back of your mind that you cannot go back. So there's certainly something that I thought about, like, what if I wanted to teach at some point again? Would the school like just take me after I have all this poker content out there? Content was another thing. Like, right, I have a YouTube channel about poker and about gambling, right? In Switzerland, we're a very, very conservative country, right?
Oh, okay.
Like people are super conservative. They're not like this open to something like poker. Like a lot of people wouldn't approve of. They, you know, if you ask, like generally speaking, people will say, well, yeah, they're interested and they think, oh, that's cool. But there's also a lot of people that wouldn't say anything, and they would have a lot of thoughts on their own, and especially in schools, and you know, you're basically should be a role model for kids. And then I did a lot of swearing on some streams and stuff. So it's like, okay, I could talk myself into the fact, like, well, or into that I couldn't really go back to that. But like, yeah, in the end, I don't think that's true at all. Like if I wanted to teach next year again, I think I could do that if that's what I would want to do. And there would always be an option to just, you know, like my strategy was always like I would go to a school that needed like work for 1-2 weeks. And if they liked me, they would ask me for longer periods. Like I always knew that was just like, you don't, in Swiss schools, you don't even have to apply, right? You just go, you teach, and then if they like you, they're going to offer you a year's job or a 3 years job. I think that's just how I went out. But so I saved myself all the time and hassle to like apply to like 20 schools after I graduated. It's just, for me, it was a better strategy. Some people, I had this like one conversation with the poker players. I say, Andreas, you're so lazy. You don't want to deal with like all this rejection thing and stuff. You just, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe that's a little bit an avoidance strategy, but I think it's also smart.
Yeah, it's like laziness and efficiency often go hand in hand.
yeah, but maybe I should have applied sometimes and got that like, no, you can't teach right now, and then having that realistic, maybe some fear sometimes is good that you cannot do a certain thing. But yeah, a lot of people, they shoot way overboard and they think that they cannot do certain thing anymore. It's totally not true. Like they over-identify with their thoughts, in my opinion. When it comes to that.
I think too that certain things we get out of poker, I definitely think more logically about certain things. And also I'm not as results oriented in anything. So the fact that I could go back and get this job the first time I apply, I don't think, oh, anytime I want to go back and get a job, I'll get the first one I apply for. I got really lucky and I hit it off with these people in an interview. I could have had the person in an interview who thinks gambling is degenerate and horrible. And they could say, hey, we really like you. And yeah, you've got good grades and all this stuff. Sorry, though, you're a degenerate gambler. Bye. That could happen. So the people who are giving me advice about, oh, man, make sure you don't stay out of law for more than a couple years because this and that. I'm like, they are going on what one friend told them it was hard to get a job after being out for a few years or whatever. Like, I don't know. Poker is definitely really cool with how it kind of like shapes your brain in other aspects of your life.
So when was it year where you played poker full time? What did it start, and for how many years did you then do that poker thing or playing poker for full time?
I think, when was the last one? I think I quit that job in 2000. 2012 or 11. Oh yeah, it was 2011. Duh, because it was the year of Black Friday. The timing was pretty hilarious. Like you couldn't have scheduled it worse. I quit and I was like, I'm not going back to law for a while. I had like a tough conversation with the woman I worked under, and I was like, I really like you guys. I think I really just don't like being a lawyer. And then Black Friday happened, and a decent amount of my money. I didn't have a huge bankroll, so having 15K locked up on full tilt was actually pretty harsh for me. And I ended up moving to Rosarito, Mexico about a year later. I was in denial for a full year. I'm like, oh, come on, land of the free. They're just going to switch the switch back on, and we're all going to play poker, and it'll be funny to look back at. I can't believe we still don't have it. It's absolutely insane. But yeah, that kind of started me thinking of myself as a real professional poker player when I left the country, and that is the only thing I did. I had no other income. And since then, so it's been about 8 years. And in between though, I'm like, now I don't even feel like a pro poker player. I'm like, for a month straight, I just grinded 10 hours a day, but I still would have trouble saying I'm a professional poker player because I just do a bunch of other stuff too.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I just like, they did the same thing, by the way, like 1.5 years ago in Switzerland, and I moved preemptively. Is that the right word? I moved to Austria because of that. And but for you, I think it was different because that must have been really hard because you went to Mexico. That was a little bit a different thing than going from Switzerland, like a small country, over to Austria. But yeah, I mean, you just go to Mexico for what you want to do, and then you basically have like all your friends. And like, did you visit them often? Like, how was that?
I would just remove myself from my normal life and was just in Mexico. It was really crazy too because I just made new friends there. Actually broke up out of it was like a 3-year relationship. It was necessary anyway. This was like a very nice relationship that was not going where it should be going. And so like that kind of was like a complete life change where I said, all right, I'm leaving Manhattan where I was living at the time, breaking up out of this like pretty comfortable relationship, going to Mexico where I didn't really have any real friends yet. I had a couple like poker acquaintances. And I went to Rosarito had like a couple little areas where there'd be like 100 poker players in one condo complex. And then there was when I realized like I love poker because all of my friends are like going out drinking and partying, and I was just like, oh, I don't know, there's the nightly like $55 and 162 on Stars. I'll be here. And I found it really easy to just put in a ton of hours. Yeah, I forget what even the beginning of that question was, but yeah, that was crazy to move to Mexico. But also I'm super grateful to have done that in my life because I think at other points in my life, it would be way harder to leave behind everything to do that.
And when did you move back from that place, noticing that there's like other options in the US, like now in Vegas, right? So when did you decide to move back? And there is going to be some way you can find out. Was it when Nevada opened with WSOP.com, or was it like some other thing or other reasoning behind it, or when you started actually working within poker?
That I got so lucky. Like this, I still have no idea how they found me because I think I just got lucky, right place, right time thing. Like there was this W Coop Main 5K in the fall, and I played that, and that was like way bigger than I would normally play. Like I would play the Super Tuesday 1K every now and then, but it wasn't like my part of my regular schedule. So to just decide I want a shot taken this, and I sold probably like 70% or something and played it and made a run in it, and I actually cashed for like 30K or something like that. Flipped for just, I don't even want to think about it. And then it's a few days later and I get a message from Warren Lush, and he was working with Party Poker at the time. He said, hey, I saw you play like pretty big online, and like we want to have someone come back to New Jersey and be like the Party New Jersey rep. And I was like, how do you even find me? I wasn't like a Twitter person. I wasn't putting myself out there at all. I just was like grinding a lot. He said, yeah, if you want to come back and help us launch this site, that would be really cool. I was like, yes, I'm not going to turn down like a super lucky thing like that. So I actually went back home. And also like my family was like, oh, great, you're not like living in Mexico forever, because they were kind of worried that I might just move there forever. So I went back to New Jersey, helped them launch that site. And I feel like that's when I started to be a little more known because I had to. They're like, make a Twitter account. You have to start, posting more stuff and trying to promote this site. And then I found out I kind of enjoyed doing that. Like, I think it's fun to try to get more people to play poker and to try to commentate and stuff. Like, there's no women. We've no women in poker. It's like 3% or something. So trying to help that out a little bit.
Yeah, so you basically found those other opportunities outside of just playing. Did you ever feel like that was somehow making you consider quitting the playing aspect more, or did you never have like that declining motivation because of seeing other opportunities in poker and the social media, the media work that you could do, etc.? Like, did you ever consider quitting poker playing?
Yeah. I almost quit a few times. It's really weird. I kind of think that actually like kept me in poker, because some of the stuff I work on, that is your kind of steadier income, has to do with poker. I was secretly doing some people's social media and some companies' social media and stuff like that. So I could never make a clean break. Like when I made a clean break from Manhattan and moved all myself and everything to Mexico, I was like, okay, new life. I can't really do that now unless I want to quit all these little things that are profitable and kind of enjoyable for me. So I feel like it kind of like kept me in poker the times when I was just thinking, okay, it might be time to move on. I'm like, well, am I going to quit all these little jobs that I like? Like, probably not. But I see what you're saying, though, because I think some people, Chrissy B is a really good example of this. We discussed like the beginning of our poker careers together, and she had said she wanted to make sure she was the best player she could be and did not want to go after sponsorships and things like that. She was like, if I become like the best player, I'll get those things. But I don't want to be someone who a sponsorship or other income becomes a crutch for your poker career, where like, you might not even be winning. You're just being like, you're having your income supplemented by, oh, come here and take a picture and do this and post it. So I think her attitude's really cool. Mine, I never went after sponsorships super hard, but I also didn't turn down opportunities that just came with being a poker player and being a female, where they're trying to market to females. That's super lucky. And I was just saying yes to all that stuff because I don't know. I like her attitude though, because she is a crusher. Yeah. That's really cool to just say like, no, I'm going to make sure I'm this type of person. I'm happy with myself. If I go lock myself in a closet and grind, I will make money. I don't need to just be like, look, I'm a cute girl and now patch me. Like, she's really like, I look up to her definitely for the way that she has kind of like structured her poker life.
Now that you just mentioned that, like, how do you feel personally about that double-edged sword of being an ambassador and not being profitable? Do you think it's somehow disingenuous towards the poker industry and the players, not like saying that, look, there's like, you're this person, you're making 10K, 15K, 20K a month from sponsorship deals, and you're basically selling the poker dream whilst not being a profitable poker player? Like, nobody's actually talking about this in the poker industry. Yeah. I think there's also reasons for that. Like, you don't want to actually offend people, right? It's like not nice to go out there and like offend some brand, some person because of actually being that spot. But at the same time, I feel like that's actually sometimes very disingenuous. I mean, yeah, but what's your take on it? Before I say
I agree with that. If you're selling something that's just not possible anymore, I really think that is scummy. I think some of the people who might do it might also be somewhat in denial about being a losing player. I know that there have definitely been times where I've felt like a fraud. I'd say like 3 years ago, I just wasn't studying. I was trying to get out of poker. I was taking writing jobs that had nothing to do with poker because that's the next thing that I want to be doing. But then also there'd be like, hey, come play this event and like rep our brand and maybe put out a tweet and do whatever. And yeah, well, you'll have a buy-in for this. And I'd be like, okay, I'll do that. But I feel like there's something where you can do that without being like a charlatan. If I was walking around saying, oh, I have like a brand new BMW because of my poker playing, blah, blah. If you are like that, then you're being a jerk. If you're someone who just takes opportunities and you're not lying about all of it, if you're trying, like, this is kind of where I would draw the line. If you're taking someone in college who's like, I want to be a poker player, it looks so glamorous from what you do, you travel all over the place, you have a nice car and a nice house and all this, and you're like, oh, definitely, here's my code, sign up for Poker Bros, you could do it. If you're doing that, you're clearly doing the wrong thing. I think a lot of the people doing something in between aren't really aware that they are leading people down a bad path. They might not even be aware that they're not making money themselves, or that they're, a losing player in a lot of stuff they're playing. So I don't know. I hate coming down on people who are just trying to make a living.
Yeah, I mean, without like mentioning any names, but I mean, we can just talk about the general behavior that we see out there in the poker industry. And I feel very critical about it. Like, there's a lot of people that they see those opportunities, how to make more money for themselves. And they're basically framing it as something so nice. Well, yeah, I'm giving you this affiliate code. I'm getting you into this game. How great of a person am I, right? I give you so much opportunity, and I only ask for 20-30% of your action. Like, It's like, okay, and like, are you really doing that for me, or like, are you just trying to make the most for yourself? Like, yeah, it is certainly. For me, that's a little bit of a sad thing about poker, that poker is more moving in that direction. It used to be, poker used to be like sit down and play, right? Back in the old days, or just, you play and if you're good, you win. That's all. And right now, a lot of people, I would say more like the bad racks, like break even regulars, that they kind of have realized, well, there's not so much in playing poker anymore. So I'd have to either make private games or like try to shift towards like games where there's no pros. There's just a protected area where they can grind, or where they can get in people and get like a commission cut. Yeah. And I think that's pretty bad for the game and for the reputation long term as well, attracting new people. Like, I don't know. I mean, how do you feel like, how can we get more people in there when this is more always moving towards this direction?
Yeah, it's really hard because like I know exactly what you're saying, and it's like hard to be like, well, I would solve the industry by doing this. I think some of the stuff that some of these sites are doing is actually the right thing. Like, ironically, ACR, which is shady and has all these problems, them getting all those huge celebrities to play that charity event, that brings more people into the game. Like, oh cool, Matt Damon and Tom Brady are in a hand together. Like that kind of stuff. That hitting social media is really good. Some of that stuff is good. So then the people who are on ACR, who most of the time I'm rolling my eyes at, because they're just like, come play on this site, it's amazing. But I'm like, it's not amazing. It crashes a lot. There's a lot of problems. It's kind of sketchy. That day when they're promoting that event, they're definitely doing the right thing. Like, they're getting more eyes on poker for a good cause, for charity, with big names and stuff. I don't know what people are supposed to be doing. For me anyway, I think the more I study, the more I love poker again, the less fake I have to be, because then I mean it when people say, oh, are you enjoying your grind? Are you do you really mean it in commentary when you're like, oh my God, 4 spades out of the river, so crazy? Like, if you love poker, you mean it. That's not fake. The times in my life when I haven't liked poker and had to do all that, you feel like a fraud. It's, everyone goes through it though. Like, there was at least a year or two where I didn't really like it. And that's kind of where I draw the line. It's like, if the person's being genuine, if someone is like shilling for a site, shilling's the most horrible word for it, but say that they're promoting a site, but they believe that site is doing everything right and that it's a good site and you could win and the rate is high and whatever, I don't think they're doing the wrong thing. It's like, there are a lot of people who know that they're doing bad things for poker and they continue because it lines their pockets, and that's kind of, I'm never going to do that.
Yeah, I think that's, I have so many, I have a range of opinions on some people out there, and of course, like, some of it I really respect a lot, like the building community aspect. But yeah, like shilling the site, I think it's often not his thing. And the thing you said, like, okay, there's always a line between having like an imposter syndrome, thinking that you're like full of it, or actually being full of it, right? And then there's always a thin line of where you cross it. And yes, obviously, who am I to judge, right? I'm like just a poker content creator, poker player myself. Like, unless the whole industry has this on their radar, which most of the time it's not. Like, I think about these things, you think about these things maybe, but right? But like a general poker player will not necessarily think about it, right? Why? There's like no incentives for the population to think about it. So therefore, not much is going to change, because it's none of their concerns, I think. It will be, I think, when poker becomes less and less beatable at some point, and when like the numbers are open, and when people realize, well, the people who actually make money at poker are the ones promoting the game, and that's actually where the money's made. But like, so far, I think, like you said, when you improve at poker, when you study, when you make money yourself, then you feel much better about the game again, and then you can promote it. And I think that's still very easily possible on a lot of sites, a lot of places. And as long as we're in that, I think that's going to continue in that path of the thing.
Like, it would be funny if I was one of those people who's like a shit stirrer. I could list the people that we're thinking of. Like, there are definitely people who if you lie detector tested them, they know they're saying the wrong thing. They know that they're not being genuine. But also, I think there are a lot of people in poker who have good intentions about poker, and a lot of the sponsored people have great personalities, and they are good ambassadors for the game. I think that there's less of the selling this like glamorous lifestyle too. If it was 10 years ago, you are watching it on TV where people are just like, they're getting rich from poker and clearly living that life and getting bottle service everywhere and talking about that glamorous lifestyle. I don't think that's being sold to us quite as much anymore, besides the fancy travel.
No, I don't. Yeah, that's more like the Instagram influencer thing, right? Yeah. That's a more general trend. It's not like a poker trend. It's like yeah. But I think the other thing, the only person I really openly criticize, but for me, it's just like so blatantly obvious. Plus the fact that he's like probably has like a net worth of at least $40 million, Daniel Negreanu. I think at that point, I think it's like, for me as a content creator, I've almost feel obliged to make that content out there. Like back when he was like talking about Morik is actually better. He didn't mean exactly maybe in that way, but the way he phrased it, like he was just offending professional poker players, online players. And I think that in general, there's a lot of people also on Twitter that they will shit on these online players. There's like the online player stereotype is almost like a villain to the recreationals, or there's
isn't that crazy?
Have you noticed that? Like that there's this new villain of the online poker wizard. Like, I'm not saying like I'm exactly that type of person, because there's still a lot of better players like me, but I belong in that category, and these are like my colleagues, right? Who are grinding solvers a lot of times a lot more than me. I have done solver work, but and there's made this villain out of these people. Whereas all they're trying to do is become really, really good at poker and in a fair manner take the money of their opponents, because that's what we all agree to when we play poker. We agree, well, we're gonna try to take each other's money away here. That's what we're doing, right? With a game, with a fair game. So how do you think about that villain?
I think that is really unfair. I'm trying to think of where I was, it might have been a pod, it might have been my own pod. Like, my mind is scrambled. I've been studying and playing too much and podcasting and everything. But I had a discussion with someone recently about that I don't like that we treat certain players, so like the old school pros, those are the ones with the big personalities and they're so exciting and they're great for TV and blah, blah, blah. And then we have this other completely homogenous group, which is the online players, and they're all boring and they all are just like nasty people who like wear their headphones and they turn their nose up at people who are worse than them at poker. It's bullshit. Like there are like thousands and thousands of people in each group. And some of the smartest people and some of the most interesting people I've met in poker are the ones that work really hard and play online, and they can put their heads down and study. And they're very intelligent. And then they can also figure out that when they get invited to a Poker Go game where they're playing in a super soft game, that they're going to have a drink and they're going to talk to people and they're going to like show their personality off because they know that's part of that game too. I just don't think there's this like dichotomy of, oh, the fun people and then the nerdy wizard people. I think that we haven't done our best in poker to develop the wizards into real personalities. The poker boom is over. We're not getting everyone's backstories, but I think that is one way to make poker more interesting, is to figure out what this person's life is like. I recently rewatched 2 Months, 2 Million. Those guys could have been the wizard nerdy people. We saw also that they smash watermelons in their spare time and are terrible at hitting on women. Develop that story. Like, I want to hear that about the people that we think are one-dimensional nerds.
Yeah, you mentioned that also in Jeff's podcast. What was that show exactly? Because I didn't really look at it yet.
If you never watched it, oh God, you're in for a treat. 2 Months, 2 Million. It was just back in the poker boom. 4 guys, but also it was like Lucky Chewy got involved and some other, and like A.E. Jones. And they just went and they were trying to have a grindhouse and make a ton of money. But also there are young guys in Vegas going out, having a good time, hitting on girls and just whatever. Just a lot of funny stuff. Those people, if it were now, let's compare it, they'd be like, okay, Helmuth is a huge personality and a celebrity. And then you would take someone like Ansky, Donnie Stern, you'd be like, this guy is the online wizard and super boring. No, he's not. That kid is so interesting. He's like a very, very, very intelligent person, and also just has like a fun personality. We just haven't done anything to develop them. So like, I think I completely agree with you that whole like the online guy's the villain and he's just boring and terrible for poker and whatever. I'm like, no, we just haven't done enough. So like,
I think like, yeah, for example, Vinny Vidi, right? Like I would actually like to know the guy. Like who is this guy? Who is this guy behind this Vinny Vidi character who was playing against Phil Gaffon? Like, hearing his story and like just losing by such a small margin against Phil in that last epic battle, like that was such a high moment in poker. You know, because yeah, Action Freak, for example, like of course I heard from him before, from Benny Vidi a little bit less, or a lot less actually.
You know, they're friends now. That Benny and Phil like talk on the regular now. Isn't that cute?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I didn't hear that yet, but
I was saying, and I'm like, that is so cool. It's like have a loss that had to be very painful, and then become friends with the guy. You're like, oh well, at least I got a friend out of it. You know, the real, what is that people say? They're like the real money is the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. Like I had this one moment in poker as well. Like I used to play free rolls back in 2010 to 2012, and it was this one guy, right? And we always used to battle for leaderboard points. And then one time at 8 p.m. the tournament started, and he just crushed me with like 6-2 suited. And he just shipped it all in on like, or he called like a 4-bet and flopped the flusher and shipped it in and won it. And I was so mad at him. Obviously, keyboard warrior a little bit back then. And then later on, like in some live tournament, he said, "Hey, I'm the 6-2 suited guy," or something like that.
Oh, that's great.
I was like, okay, and then we became friends later on. That was like so funny. And yeah. It's just so funny how poker sometimes develops. Like how online, you know, it can be the opponent, but after that, you know, it's all fine. Like, yeah, that is sometimes the interesting part. Like I always like seeing people behind the screen afterwards, you know, in a real tournament and find out who is behind the screen names. I think that's a hilarious part. Like trying to picture somebody and how they actually are based on their online play style. And then you see them in real and you play with them on a real table and you go, oh, this is not exactly how I would have.
I would have blown your mind because back in the day, I was my screen name was And the Law Won because from the Clash song, but also I was trying to have something like legal related. No one ever thought I was a girl. Like people in the chat would be like, bro, this and that. And I'd be like, not a bro. No one ever would think that women were even playing. And I thought that was kind of cool. That's why I liked online more, is that like you find out if you are good at poker or not. No one knows if you're fat or skinny, male or female, any of that. And like that's kind of cool. And it was funny. There were like the keyboard warriors everyone knew, and then you'd meet them in real life and be like, this guy's like a totally like normal, well-adjusted dude. But when he gets beaten in an MTT,
you're just done. That's for sure funny. Yeah, and also I think I can relate to that though. That I would assume that most of the time it's just like a guy, right? You wouldn't think that it's a girl playing. That's just your default, right? Just because it's such a large number of 97%, 98% or something.
One of my friends I study with the most is another woman, and we always still say he when we're talking about handles. Well, he 3-bets a lot, like his 3% is this. We say he, and we're both females playing poker, so yeah, I think you just kind of go with the math of it, and you're like, well, most of the time you're going to be right. You assume it's a male.
Have you seen Phil Gaffon make training videos and like talk about running ones poker and seeing these avatars? He's always so politically correct. It's like typical Phil. It's like, yeah, you know, he is like through he or she, right? Because he sees like the avatar, the female avatar on running ones poker. It's like, or she. It's like, okay, that would be so politically correct.
It's funny because those are the spots where I'm like, I could not care less like about the political correctness thing, because that tends to be like the most innocent kind of.
Of course, There's other areas where I understand like some people get offended, but there's also some where I just wouldn't care much. One of the things that you also did a lot is like writing content taking opportunities. For example, you mentioned on our podcast you've written some of the jokes of the punchlines of Doug Polk's videos, right?
That was a fun job, and he's kind of out of poker. He's like a very interesting person because he beats a game and then he's done with it. Like that's the best way to describe it. That he's kind of interested in the next challenge more than he's interested in like standing on top of the mountain and being like, I'm the best, everyone look at me. Like he's a strange dude because he has enough of an ego to want to crush a new field, but not so much of an ego where he just wants everyone to like bow down to him when he's the best at something. So he kind of was the best at content creation. His poker videos, the ones that I would work on with him, they still get an incredible amount of views every day, even though we do not promote it at all. And don't make any new videos. There's no like, hey, a new video is up, everyone come watch this. People are just searching out his like poker hands videos. But that was a really fun job to get offered because some guy on the internet just trolled him on Twitter and said, "Hey, Doug, you're not funny anymore. Maybe you should hire Jamie," and tags me. And I'm like, I read it, I'm like, oh no. Because I thought it was the kind of thing that, you know, this is going to be like negative. Someone's just going to be like, she's not funny, blah, blah, blah. Or Doug's going to be like, ignore it. And I'm going to feel a certain way about it. Instead, he sends me a DM and is like, what do you think? Like, you have time to do stuff like this? And we talked about it. And I ended up that was like 2 or 3 years ago. Started to just write jokes. And I love it. I think that's the most fun. It's one of the things that comes more naturally to me than anything else, is just someone even editing people's jokes. So I have a possibility to write on a show. If this show takes off, I'll be a writer on a real show. And I read a script and I'm like, oh, it'd be funnier if it said this instead. And that's just a thing where I'm like, I really enjoy doing it. And I didn't realize it was a thing that I was uniquely good at until I was asked to do it. And then people are like, oh, that is so much better. Thanks. And I'm like, oh, that wasn't hard. You know, like, it's weird when you like discover a thing where you're like, okay, I thought everyone was good at this. And then people are like, no, you're really good at this. And like, I haven't had that in a long time. In poker, I don't feel like that at all. I don't feel like I'm uniquely good at anything in poker. I'm always talking to people who are better than me at it. So to find something where I'm like, I enjoy doing it and people tell me I'm good at it, I'm like, oh, that feels really good.
So you're saying that we should blame you of, you know, throwing Alec Torelli and other guys in poker under the bus.
Yes, probably. Actually, like I was talking to one of my friends about this. I feel like if anything, I tempered some of the responses, like, you know, because there's certain things where if it's funny enough, it's less mean. You know, if you're going to pick on someone, but it's really funny, I can appreciate it. Like, some people troll me on Twitter now and then. If they say you're fat, that's like so lazy. If you pick on something and make it funny, you know, those people don't get blocked or muted, because I'm like, fair point. And I kind of feel like that with Doug's videos, is that we try to find the humor and stuff instead of just being nasty to people. And that was very satisfying. And then the flip side of that was crypto. When we entered the crypto world, we went after people hard. And that was actually really satisfying because people were actively scamming. They were like the BitConnect scandal. We like were a week ahead of the actual like basically Ponzi scheme being discovered. And that I just went hard at people because I'm like, you are stealing money from people. Like, we're going for the nasty jokes here. So I don't know. I wrestled with that a little bit though, because there were people like, we went after Berkey for one video. It was just a hand history. Who cares? But I'm like writing a joke about Berkey. I'm like, I like Berkey. I don't want to make fun of him. But also, it's like if you're
when you fold the nines, or was
yes, I think that's that hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, it's like making fun of the way a person played a hand. It's not that deep. I'm not like going after him, you know, in some like real way. But also, I was happy when the poker part ended, because I don't like the two-facedness of like writing a joke about someone and then also really liking that person.
Yeah, that is actually really tough probably to do, like to be not mean, but like I also appreciate some people making fun of me. I mean, that's actually, yeah, I mean, there's been moments I have some people that they, I mean, it depends always on how they do it, right? Like if they actively trying to hurt me and in some way, then it's totally obviously that not bad at that part. But there are some people they make fun jokes, and it's like, it's okay, that's fair game. It always depends on how it comes across, I think, and how the intention is behind it. And some people, they just can't help themselves, like, you know, the YouTube haters and they're just keyboard warriors putting like stuff in there. They just can't help themselves, you know, they don't know it any better. That, you know, they might be frustrated in their lives, and it's more telling something about them than about you anyway. So but yeah, there's a lot. And so
Doug did some things that were good too. I think that, you know, sometimes we were probably a little harsh with some people who just played a hand bad, and it kind of heaps bad attention on them if they just play it, and like that kind of sucks. And I've actually been there too. One of the first like televised hands I ever played, I bluffed into the royal flush of Jason Somerville when he was the most famous poker player on the planet, and oh my god, it felt like it was horrible, because I would just get these random messages and I'm just like, okay, I played a hand bad. This is a bad hand of poker. I'm over it. But then you get reminded of it a lot. So I didn't enjoy that part where I felt like I was heaping that on certain people, where I'm like, yeah, they just played a hand bad. They shouldn't have to answer for it for a month. And yes, making a video like brought more attention to that. But then I really thought that some of the things that Doug wanted to focus on were good for poker, that like you're kind of going after people who are like, I felt like he was punching up sometimes for some of the biggest name pros who were doing shitty things. And I kind of think there was some value to that, and that, you know, and I know it's cost me some jobs, I've found out, to have worked for him, but I also think doing the thing that you think is the right thing to do is worth a lot. And I've felt pretty, I don't think I've taken any jobs, or I don't think I've worked for people I don't respect. So like in poker, I'm like fine with how it's shaking out.
It's actually also, I thought about it, like, well, what's the budget that I have to hire, you know? Because I also wanted to make some videos that are a little bit meaner, that are a little bit pointing out the shit that's happening in poker. And yeah, I just wanted to make them like in a certain way that it's the nail on the coffin. Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff out there, like for example, poker courses. Like I have started a new series called like Online Poker, and then I try to talk about online poker and what's happening in the space. And then like one of the video ideas have like to talk about whether you should be buying a poker course. And you know,
you're gonna go after specific courses.
I'm not sure because like I've seen a lot of what's out there. I think a lot of it is actually overpriced by quite a bit, and a lot of it is like the marketing is a little bit disingenuous, right? It's just like way over the top. It's promising you certain things that's really not doing for you, and like a lot of recreational players, like I sometimes talk to them, like, yeah, I thought about buying like this course. I'm like, dude, like, okay, what are you trying to get out of it? And then yeah, they basically, they just got this satisfaction when they bought a course, but there's not really much in that for them.
I had a discussion with one of my friends who the casino near him closed, and that was a place that was his gold mine. And he's more of like a person with a real job who loves poker. And he's like, well, if I want to play online, I'm gonna have to get a lot better. I think I'm gonna buy X course. And it was this very expensive course that, you know, if you're just a random dude who plays 1-2 live, why are you going to spend multiple thousands of dollars when you can just do the work yourself? Like if you're at that level where you're like not very good and you're kind of new to poker, you're probably better off just doing some work yourself first. Just literally going over hand ranges you should be opening and 3-betting in like different positions. You probably can sit for 10 hours and do that, and then decide if you want to buy that course or do something else. But I think that you're right with that some people get the satisfaction of like, I spent a bunch of money on this. I have these big name pros talking at me. This is the right thing to do to learn poker. And I think a lot of the time it's like a little bit lazy, and there's not a lot of thought put into it, where you really could probably make your own study schedule yourself for no money.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think about what I should tell them. Like there's actually I don't think there's many great poker books out there, but there's just some content out there that's actually fairly cheap.
I'll find you one right now.
I know one, but which one?
This is my friend, Brocus.
Okay.
It's good. It's a good book. Like before you go spend $5K on a course, read it. Like, what did I spend? How much is this
like
book?
Probably $40 or something.
20 something. Yeah. And you know, it's things like that where you're like, if you're wrong, you've wasted 5 hours and $20. You know, if you're wrong about buying a course, you've wasted thousands of dollars, and you might have watched a person talk for like 40 hours.
I mean, it's so hard to actually make those decisions, so that the piece of content I want to make will be really tricky, because in a way you don't want to be too frugal to invest in your poker game. Like it is important that you think of poker as some investment in some form, but then, you know, you also don't want to just, you know, spend like 1K, 2K on courses and just buy them and then just not use them. And you really want to make sure you pick the right product. And there's obviously nobody really criticizing the products out there that much. So to tell you like what you should be careful of.
As long as you're fair and you don't have like biases against certain people, I feel like that's super useful. I also think like I've told people that I think Upswing's a good jumping off point. And then I think Run It Once is really good for like specific things you want to tweak. Like I think Run It Once would be hard if you're brand new, because it's just like a lot of the stuff is really dense and like very, you have to have some basis of knowledge first. But I also think that it's inexpensive.
They have like 2 beginner courses too, like, or mediocre, like for $50 or something. So that's actually price point wise a lot lower and more affordable whereas others courses like at least $600-700. And there's some subscription based things out there. So
there are
where you can test out and see whether you get the value, right? There's some $25, some $100.
That's the one, Ryan LaPlante. Ryan LaPlante just started one. I know I haven't taken it. I don't know much about it, except that is what he's doing, like with all his time, and he's a super driven dude, and the price point is low. So that's another thing where it's like, if the price point's low, maybe that person speaks to you. Spend the 25 and see if that person is like going to help you. And then with Run It Once, I'm like, there's almost no other course where you could say, I'm bad blind versus blind in this scenario. Let me look up if someone has done a course. And that's why I think Run It Once is valuable, is that you can find specific things that you suck at and work on it, where I think most other courses are like a little more general. So I don't know. I think that would be really cool if you did it like that, if there was like no malice behind it, and you just went through and highlighted the things that are great about certain courses and like gave them a ranking on what they give you versus the money spent. I think there's a way to do it where you don't end up being the villain.
Yeah. There's a lot of aspects to it for sure. Like I'd have to think about it even a little bit longer before I make that kind of content.
Yeah. Well, people are so sensitive. They're so sensitive. I've discovered this through commentary, that I make the mistake of assuming that people are gonna have the same skin density as me, with like being thick or thin skinned. And so I'll just talk about people on a stream thinking this person can handle this amount of criticism or this amount of joking. I'm wrong. I'm super wrong, because I didn't realize that I'm like pretty chill and go with the flow with the things people say about me or my game. Because a guy had sent me, I want to say 25 Facebook messages straight of every hand he played at a final table and an explanation of why. And I was like, dude, I'm very sorry, but I was just giving my opinion. And he's like, well, here's why I didn't 3-bet the jacks in this spot. I was like, oh my God.
Wow,
like, people take themselves so seriously. So you might end up in that spot where you like fairly review a course and the person put their heart and soul into it, and you'll be the villain in their life for the next several years, you know?
Raghav is here joining us in chat. Yes, we are looking at the questions. Like if it's specifically about PLO and bankroll management, I think there's another place for that. But if you have any questions for Jamie here, feel free to ask away. But I don't think we're going to go too much into bankroll management in PLO, unless you have like some bankroll. Do you have any bankroll management tips for the guys out there?
What if I just like answered it as if I'm an expert and I'm really just...
Yeah, let's go.
Well, it's very important to have only 1% of your bankroll on the table at all times. I have no idea. I'm an MVP person.
I generally think always I make the point in my videos and on content that I think bankroll management is important, but a lot of people, because the question gets come up all the time, overvalue it in one way, or they spend too much time thinking about it. Like it's really, you go to pokerdope.com, you plug in the numbers and you see what can happen. And you try to limit your risk of ruin to something like 0 to 5%. And then when you're at the risk of ruin that you're comfortable at, then yeah. So Peter is asking, what was the price hiring Jamie for that? Like, yeah, you probably cannot put out the numbers that you were paid.
No. Yeah, it's like each one. That's something though. Oh man, that's something I never thought I'd have to do, is like negotiate with people. I hate it.
Yeah.
It is the worst, because a lot of the times that it happens, it's someone that I'm somewhat friends with asking me to do some favor. And it's weird. Like, let's say that you're making videos and you want help one time writing a joke, $0. If you're like, oh man, I have a really good thumbnail that'd be funny, but do you think this sounds good? $0. But then there are people who will take that and be like, every day, here's another question. I'm like, that doesn't cost $0. Like, that's now taking my time up. And that is an uncomfortable thing that I wish I could get used to, is like negotiating for my own value.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of messages from people like trying to get you to do certain things and like answer questions, and like where you think, well, you know, for me, for example, there's like at some point I draw the line and say, well, this is what you get into coaching. Like right now I don't have time for coaching, but like in 1-2 months when the corona crisis is a little bit over, then I will have time again. I am more than happy to answer some of the questions, especially when they're on a YouTube video, because then everyone can see it, everyone can get some value from it if they see it, or in a Discord or just somewhere public. But if they have like private questions that are for themselves, and I might answer, help out a little bit here and there, but my time there is also at some point I have to say no, and that's something I needed to learn. I don't like it, but Yeah, I learned that a little bit from Doc too, like listening to him and his mindset to that. Like he's really, really straight and point. Like he said, look, here's the end. Here, I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. Like I'm not going to help you promote your stuff if you try to trick me and stuff like that. I'm not gonna do that. So I think that Doc's very on point on that in many ways. So I learned from him and how to deal with that, even though I obviously don't have many, like too many people asking. But like the other part of negotiating is also true. Like you had to develop your own skill set of negotiating with people and say, okay, well, how much do you charge? And it's certainly not easy.
It's a weird thing too. And I feel like guys probably somewhat feel like this, but I think it's a little bit more pronounced for women, that we don't want to come across as pushy. And you don't want to make the person you're gonna be working for not like you. Like that's the thing I think about when I'm negotiating with someone. But at the same time, it's like, well, that is why there's probably more of a pay gap than there should be for certain things. And so I have had that in the back of my mind, that like, don't make the problem worse. If you think you're worth more, ask for it. The worst that can happen is they say no. If they don't like you because you think you're worth more per month to write, that's they suck then, right? If you're not asking for something crazy, then there's no reason the person should leave a negotiation not liking you anymore. But that is in the back of my head when I'm like pushing a little bit for what I do.
I think it's fairly easy to ask yourself too many questions, and that I have done that a lot as well with some people that when doing commentary or something. Then I shouldn't think like too much about it. If I want a certain amount, then I have to ask for it, and if not, then it's a no, and it's all good. So Raghav is asking in the chat, like, do you think you also had some opinions on another podcast whether online poker boom is over, when COVID lockdown will end, and what are your thoughts on it? You said like something about people have lost what they ever wanted to lose in the US, or?
I think so. I think that the first couple of weeks were clearly going to be the juiciest weeks, where people who still have leftover money that they're not spending on entertainment. Like these are people who maybe would have spent money on concerts and sports and things that there's just nowhere to spend money right now. So they still had their feeling of job security at that time and expendable income, and they had time to play poker finally. So there are those people. I think some of those people at least got smacked down, like, oh man, poker's so much harder than it used to be. And they realized that they hit a stop loss of whatever it was, and they stopped playing. So like, it just makes sense the first few weeks would be the best. I think also that when people aren't feeling financially secure, this is not a spot people will spend money. If they don't know if they have jobs to go back to, they don't know how the economy's doing, if stocks are down, if Bitcoin is down, all that different stuff, those people will fall out of the poker economy. I just think, that's why I played so many days straight. I just felt like this is going to be really good for a little while, and then I have no idea. I'm not, I'm just guessing like everyone else. And I think that there is a renewed interest in poker, though, that there's so many people playing on apps and stuff that were mainly just random live players. They would play live once or twice a week, and now they're on apps all the time, and it's become a thing that's like part of their life. So I don't think everyone's going to quit when COVID is over. I think some of these people will stick around, but I think we're lying to ourselves when we say, oh, the first week was amazing, and in a year it'll be amazing. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think that some people will stick around in online poker, and for online poker specifically, it might have not been the worst thing. It has created a little bit of boom, but yeah, in the end, I don't know how many, like, people are already back to live poker, Florida and some other places. Do you see that? Or
it blows my mind. I feel very strongly about this, so maybe I might lose some people who might have liked the beginning of this pod, but I feel very strongly that is not smart. Like, we don't even know. Like, every week that goes by,
at least not in the US, right? Or,
and some of the spots are hot spots for the virus right now. Like, I just don't understand. And like poker rooms, I understand that I'm in a really good spot, so I have to keep remembering that the reason I don't feel pressure to go back and do all these like dangerous things is because I'm not bored. I have so much stuff to work on, and I have like all my time is invested in stuff I want to do, and I can make money right now. So like I you know, I have to just like take it with a grain of salt, my own thoughts, because I think some people are desperate for their life to feel normal, to have purpose, to, you know, make money, to get out of the house and all that other stuff. So not faulting the people individually for wanting to go play live poker, but I just wish we could wait a couple more months, because I think that we'll know more about this. We'll know how dangerous it is to be touching the same chips and cards and everything. And also, it puts people who would maybe be collecting unemployment in a really, really bad spot. So like, say there's a dealer with kids or with like elderly people and living in their house, like their parents or something. I think in some states, this takes away their ability to collect unemployment. Their job is available to them again. So then they're in a spot where they can't collect unemployment and they have to go work a dangerous job they don't want to work. And that's what makes me feel really bad. And like, if those people are being forced to do that instead of getting government assistance, that is really sad, because it's just poker. Like live poker, it's like, there's people playing 1-2 for $15 an hour. I wish that our government would go, here's the $15 an hour, stay home and be healthy.
Yeah, especially I think it's like you do, yes, compared to like, for example, here, Austria is a little bit late behind Switzerland. Like Switzerland has the gyms open again. Austria doesn't. Like I even still have to wait 2 weeks or another week or two.
Oh, are you gonna go?
In 2 weeks? Yeah, we have, Jamie, we have like 20, 30 people every day that might still get like the coronavirus. Like it's all across the country. Like it's at some point, I think it's ridiculous. Like the restaurants are open again in Austria. Austria and Switzerland is really good right now. So it's quite stable. But I've also seen like a lot of people at the lake. So, you know, it might break out again. We're going to find out. And of course, like if there's like another wave, then I stay at home. But I think with so few people at some point, I think the risk just goes down so much. And, you know,
and you're young and healthy, like that. Yeah. I mean, that's the case too. Some of the pictures I was seeing though, was like older players are playing. I just like, I don't know. It's like our health is super important. I think people just have that feeling of being invincible, and we're just not. Like I had one of my friends' dad died from it, and it's like it's horrifying, and it became super real to me. And then I just started worrying about my own family because they're in New Jersey, and New Jersey is like one of the worst states for it right now. And I don't know. It just seems like if the more real life connections you have to it, the more frivolous it seems to just go play a game or like go to the gym. But that's because it's unsafe right now in the U.S. in a lot of places.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at the numbers and see, okay, well, like, okay, at what point am I realistically trying to take chances here? Like, I didn't visit my parents for like 2 months, and then now last week or so, I've seen them again, like a week ago. But it's because, you know, it was a reasonable thing for me to do again. I thought that I looked at numbers, well, they're fair. I can go across the border because I have a Swiss passport and I live in Austria, so they will let me back and forth. I thought that was reasonable, and I also like. I think my father, you know, he wouldn't have the he wouldn't have the strongest immune system, so he might be also slightly at risk. So I wouldn't want to, you know, put him at risk, right? So I thought it was, but I wouldn't speak the same for like the US, and especially many of these cases where there's a dense population and so many people. It's just a different thing for sure. What would you say in general we could do to get more people, and especially women, into poker? You've been asked this question probably a lot of times, but maybe we'll go into some dialogue about that.
It's fine that I get asked it a lot, because it made me think about it a lot. And it's just people want this magic bullet that, oh, if we market in this way, we're going to get women in the door. And I don't think that's true. I think they've done little things that help. The Royal Flush Girls thing that like Kate Hall kind of latched onto when it was like that at WPT, it would be like hot women in like tight outfits doing the thing, like presenting it, and I think that matters a little to making people feel like, oh, this is not for you, this is like a man's game. They even changed it, and they have like the Royal Flush crew, and they're more acting as like hostesses and making content and doing all this stuff. I feel like companies that have been called out for certain little like sexist things have really made an effort to advertise a little bit better to like more people than just men. So that's really cool. I think that's a step in the right direction. I think it's awesome that there are more women in roles. Like this is part of the reason I enjoy doing commentary, despite like the feeling of like putting yourself out there and maybe not even being like, I'm not like a super expert at poker. So I know some people would rather have a GTO person in that role than listening to me. But also, I think there's some value in having a woman talk about poker and be like, hey, I play this, I take it seriously. I'm not a model. I don't like, this is a game I actually love playing. That's pretty cool. I think there are more groups of women studying together recently. I've getting invited to little things, and like I taught a seminar once, and it was super cheap. It was just trying to get people in the door to start playing. 30 women showed up. I think the average age was probably 50 years old. There is a move in the right direction, and I think a lot of it is just having sponsored pros like Chrissy. Chrissy is like a super legit poker player, and it's not just based on her looks. That's very helpful in just setting an example of like it can be done. You can get to this point. There's a lot. There's just so many factors. Just at the table, I haven't gotten treated poorly in a really long time. It's pretty cool that, you know, I don't get the oh, if you're playing, who's watching the kids, blah blah, like those kind of comments. I haven't heard dumbass comments like that in a while. I think people are just getting better at realizing that like a woman sitting at your table is not a unicorn. Like you're going to see this once in a while. It's not as much of a novelty as it used to be. And so I don't know. I think things, it might be too optimistic, but I think things are in the right direction right now.
Do you know talent chick Adrian? Also, yeah, she's, I think with her stream and everything, you know, having a kid, I think that also brought like, that was great because whether, you know, you liked seeing a kid on stream or not, maybe some people didn't like the baby crying, but I thought that was just like a relatable person, you know, to see it, and a woman that you know, has a kid and is actually playing online poker, that is just making it more normal, right? I think making it very, very normal in the eyes of the public is one big aspect of that. Yeah,
and some women in poker have gone on to just crush other things. Like Jen Chadi, maybe not the best example because she was already crushing things in chess and everything, but she's an amazing ambassador for women in poker, to just be like focusing on the mind sport aspect of it, instead of highlighting that she's good looking. Like that's just a side effect. You know, you're like, oh, she's also cute. It doesn't, you know, that's not the main thing. And then Liv Bourret, who like obviously is a model and all this stuff, but like she is like brain forward. It's like that is the first thing you're met with is like this girl is really brilliant. And she was an amazing ambassador for poker. I think she did a lot of good for poker before kind of stepping away. I think all these things combined to just, you know, give the right example of women in poker, where I think 10 or 15 years ago, it really was like all the people who were patched were models first. You know, like that kind of thing is it's whatever. I don't want to take away people's jobs. Like I think the Royal Flush Girls are cool. I think that they deserve their jobs and everything. I just am happy when they're also hosting or like creating content and doing other things, so that it becomes less of the like you have to look good to have a job in poker as a woman. Like that's
let's not kid ourselves. Like the EV that comes from hiring models in poker that are then, you know, being patched up, it is for the guys, right? That's not for attracting women. Obviously, that's just like, well, you know, it's selling the experience to guy. Yeah, if you're gonna play at a poker table, you're gonna have these girls playing at the poker table with you too. Do you want to participate? This is the buying, right? This is what the selling point is. There's nothing to do with like, you know, having a female representative in poker. It's just not the point at all. So I think that the other thing that they're seeing regular people at home just playing online poker. I think Twitch is a great platform for that.
A lot of women dabble in Twitch, and that's really cool because it's just my friend Haley. It's so funny because like all these women I keep bringing up, they are attractive, but that's not their whole thing. And like Haley Hochstetler is a girl I met through Run Good Gear. We would go to events and stuff like that. She's streaming on Twitch, but she's taking poker seriously. You know, she could also have followers if she just sat there and was like, I put on makeup and I'm cute, but she's not doing that. And I give a lot of credit to these people who are like not taking the easy route or like trying to get sponsorships before they know how to play. I think there's like a lot of really good women in poker, a lot of really smart women in poker. And I think the tides will turn eventually. I doubt it'll ever be anywhere approaching 50-50 men and women in poker. But even if it got to 10%, like overcoming all this societal crap that makes you feel like you shouldn't be gambling and all that, and maybe even biological stuff like, you know, testosterone makes people more they want to take more risk and everything. But yeah, I don't think it should be 3%. I don't think our brain differences and chemical differences would make it 90.
Explain for that 97.3. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's certainly also the force of people's opinions that will weigh on that and polarize it even more.
The support system too. like it's very rare for a woman to be, yeah, I live with 5 other poker players in a grindhouse and we study every day. That's not really, like, that's not normal. I was lucky. I moved to Rosarito and I lived with 2 guys. We each had our own thing. Like, one was doing PLO all the time. Ben Yu was one of them. Ben Yu was grinding Magic way more than he was grinding poker at the time. But he was someone, if I said,
Benny?
Ben Yu. Do you know Ben Yu? Little Asian dude who's like the nicest guy. He plays really big. He'll play the 50K Players Championship and stuff like that.
Okay.
But he was
I met a lot of Magic the Gathering people. I also used to play Magic the Gathering, but I was never that good. I was like maybe regional level or something, like Switzerland, right? But I never participated in the bigger events. But I enjoyed those card games as well. And there's also there's so many great Magic players that then went into having poker careers.
Isn't that crazy?
Or both, and they would crush it in both. It's so. There's also one of the commentators recently. Let me just think. Now I just dropped the name, but he was also commentating with me. Jesus, I should just remember. What's the name? Also running one's coach, fellow running one's coach, was also playing Magic the Gathering.
Okay, I just commentated with Richard Gaylor, and he was a big StarCraft guy. Like, there's people who kind of dominated some other strategy thing and then went on to like dominate poker. It's like whatever part of their brain lights up when they do strategy stuff lights up for poker too. And it's kind of interesting that there's been a lot of crossover between like other strategy games and poker. I never really did. I was a sports person, so maybe that's why I'm not dominating. Like, I have the competitive part that makes me want to study, but I wasn't really like some strategic thinker in some other game growing up.
Would you say that this studying strategy is just like, I feel like that's not so attractive to women, like studying strategy? Like, okay, you see that if you talk to Jen Chadi, she's teaching girls how to play chess and trying to empower women to play chess more and be more strategic. So, but apart from that, like, it is something that's not cultivated in schools and society, that strategy, like the art of war in some sense, right? That's like a man's game. Yeah,
and just to use my one life sample set as an example, I was like very much math oriented. Like, I took AP calculus when I was in high school, and I still found my way into an English and psychology major instead. I feel like that's weird. Like, I don't think that part was nurtured in me. Like, clearly I could have done it myself. Like, I could have said, doesn't matter if I'm not expected to be in the like STEM type of classes, I'm gonna go dominate this. I wasn't like that. I was 17. I'm just like, okay, I guess I'll go do this thing. And I was in classes with mostly women with like English and psychology, whereas if I had taken STEM classes, I probably would have been in the minority in those classes. So there is something that happens, and I don't know, like, I was oriented towards that kind of math thing, and I got away from it somehow. I fell through the cracks at 17 to go do the typical girl stuff instead. And it's cool seeing Jen, who hasn't. Like, Jen is playing, she's done strategy games for a living pretty much, and she like edits chess websites, and she's a super famous chess person. She's written chess books. It's cool to know people like that, because I'm like, okay, you kind of like stayed the course for the thing that you were very good at, instead of letting pressures kind of like take you off that path and lead you toward jobs that were more female oriented.
Yeah, I think there's just such a huge pull, and these are obviously then going to be the remaining exceptions that survived all these pulls that try to pull them out of their path. And I mean, there's so many smaller studies that hint towards that. There's obviously a lot of biological differences between men and women, but there's going to be just some things that you get put into, like you're like, even the whole climbing, like girls would like to climb trees, right? But we're often going to be protected from their by their parents, that they don't pursue those things, right, early on already, and that just even the first 10 years of their lives, they will be vastly different because of how the parents let them or don't let them.
For sure. I was my dad passed away kind of young, which is super depressing, but he was someone who was a super amazing influence on my life for having me be like just exposed to all the stuff that I felt like doing. There was no, this is like a girly activity, you're going to do this. I had t-ball I played t-ball with my friends, so I made friends with like little 6-year-old boys when I was 6. And then at age 9, they have you split off. 9 years old, there's softball and there's baseball. And all of my like school friends who are girls were going to go play softball. But I said, well, my t-ball friends are boys and they're playing baseball and I want to play baseball. And he's like, okay, you play baseball. So for like a couple years when I was young, I stuck with my friends who were boys because I liked them and played baseball, and it was not a thing. My dad wasn't like, nope, this is how it works, like you do this and this is like, and I thought that was like very progressive for someone 30 years ago to realize that, oh, I'm gonna let my kid like be a kid. There's no reason to like gender your kid and push them into certain activities that will make you feel more comfortable with what they're doing. So I played every single sport and he coached some of my sports, and it, and he didn't drive my brother to do that. My brother wasn't as athletic. And so it wasn't, well, you're a boy, you better get good at football or something. There was none of that. So like that was pretty cool to, now I feel like that's parents know to be more open-minded with the things that their kids are skilled at. But back then I was like, that's pretty awesome that my dad didn't try to push me one way or another.
Yeah, I think that in the end, obviously, there is books on parenting, but parenting is a really tough thing because I would expect it like, you have your own life still, and then you try to manage, or maybe you shouldn't try actually to manage that much and try to let more happen with the kids and the natural development and have some faith in that the kids will turn out well. Back when I was teaching also in that 1 year, I thought that there's some parents, they just they wanted it so badly for their kids, like that they succeed in a certain aspect. They would come and negotiate about certain things and how certain things are going to go. And I had to learn as a teacher that you kind of have to just set boundaries to that as well and say, look, it's going to be fine, even though, and then who are you? Like, you're this, I was like 26-year-old, they're talking to like some 40, 50-year-old parents and like, they're going to be fine. Trust me, It's
yeah.
Like,
okay. And you're like, trust me, I'm guessing as well, but good luck.
But most of the time it's going to be like that. If people are just obsessively trying to control their kids, I think that's just not the way to go, and just giving them the opportunities to also fail is really important. And many parents, I think they're trying too hard to not let their kids fail, and in the end, will exactly
you're supposed to succeed at something else. Like that could just be it. You're pushing them towards the thing you want them to be good at. Maybe their brain's not oriented that way.
In the end, that leads to a lot of gender differences. And so what do you think? I think that in the end, also this whole getting women to poker is also going to help getting more people into poker, because I think that when you talk about poker with a lot of people, the fact that we got half the population almost excluded from the game, or up to but 3%, is going to make a conversation about the game extremely difficult. Maybe if you bring up soccer to around friends, like maybe even there it could be difficult to talk about it because it's still polarizing number there too. But I think it's obviously accepted and it's not gambling. It's something else. So but then I feel like that would help the entire industry a lot. So that
it would help the games, like women do, and like this is all on average. So like I'm kind of stereotyping women right now, but I think on average women are a little friendlier and chattier at the table. And so that is what we're looking for, right? We're looking for rec players to have a little more fun and not mind losing. That's like a big part of our game when it's a zero-sum game. Like you have to have some people who don't mind losing if we want to make money and be able to do it professionally. And the more times I've played with the women, I'm not super shy at the table. I'm open to conversation, but I'm not the person who's like, we are going to make this fun and blah, blah. I'm like, no. But if someone talks to me, I'll talk to them. The more times I've played with women, I feel like I've had a better time. I feel like they are the person who turns to the guy next to them and is like, oh, so what do you do? And like, whatever. And like kind of starts that conversation. And I think that's really valuable. I think, I think that more things get brought to the table when there's a woman or where there's just different people playing. And I do think that it's a subject that's getting like beaten into the ground of like, how do we get more women to play? But I don't think like a concerted effort has been made by advertisers and companies to actually make it happen. And, there are people like, I don't know, I've talked thousands of hours probably about this with my female friends about like, oh, how did you get into it? And like, why are you still into it? And like some of the ones who aren't crushing, some of the ones who are in a similar position to me, where like you make some money, but you would clearly make more money doing something else. Like you have a degree in something else, but you love poker. Why do you love poker? How do you stay in this game? How hard is it to get in and stay and all this? And like there should be more going on to like get women marketed to, because I don't know, there's a chance I would have backed out from the beginning. I remember the first time buying chips at a casino, I didn't even know where to go or where to sit or who to ask and all this stuff. And with the added feeling of people looking at you because you clearly are new, they would have known you. And this little five.
People hate that feeling, right? It doesn't matter, and especially if you're not like a woman and you're sitting down at the table, it's probably even more uncomfortable at first. And everyone looking at you, and for whatever reason, right? Just because you're new and then you're a woman, and it's like, okay, that they could make you really feel alienated right away.
That's what I think. I think there probably are some women who tried it and felt like icky, didn't want to be the center of attention at that table or something. Like, there are people who try it once and just go like, this is not for me. I think there's a smaller, that there's an additional barrier to entry there, where you can't kind of just anonymously go sit at the table, play, decide if you like it or not. And I know this from teaching my mom how to play and sitting with her and like having her be at the table, and like the concerns that she expressed were so different from any guy friends I've had who've gotten into poker. For her, it was very much about like how she felt socially, how she felt about the people at the table, how she got treated, all this stuff. She won the first time she played. That's enough for a guy. Like, I won, I'm coming back, right? For her, like, she talked more about like the atmosphere,
social aspect.
So I think there's more to it for women maybe than just the like winning or losing.
And I have that one experience this January where there was a woman playing, and then she must have been like between 30 and 35 or something. And then there was like these live/online grinders. Like, I couldn't tell them whether they were live online grinders, but then she played 5-10, and it was like, boom, bum hunting. This is like three guys, just like, and they wouldn't even make a fusses about it. It's like, guys, like, what are you just doing? Like, are you just like fully obviously bum hunting her, like almost in her face? Like, like I don't know how many times she's played, but she's been clearly not playing like probably for like ages or something. So that was totally ridiculous. Like, it must have been a really weird experience for her.
There's something that people don't talk that much about too, is that live poker, I remember the outliers so much more easily. It's just, your brain's just going to remember people who are weird to you, who don't fit a certain stereotype. If I see an old guy 5-bet bluff, that old guy is burned into my brain for all eternity. Like, I see that guy, I'm like, that's that gangster old guy. And I think that it's part of it for women too, is that you get paid attention to, which kind of sucks. If you're playing the same people a lot, they have like HUD stats on you in their mind that you don't have on them, because to me, that guy just looks like a hoodied guy like everyone else, but to him it's like, oh, I'm that girl that 3-bets too much because he noticed it and whatever.
Don't you have it way easier in some way? I've seen guys soft play women a lot.
Yeah,
especially older guys. You get soft played a lot. Like, I would actually argue that I could make more money in live poker games as a woman. Like, because you get soft played. It's like,
if you're hyper aware of how other people are perceiving you, then I totally agree with that. Like, if you are aware, if some old guy's like, I'm gonna fold to you, and you're like, cool, noted, awesome. And also just that's something you learn just from talking to people. You could be a guy and you're just super friendly. You'll get more information like that. It's hard to know when someone's soft playing you and when they're not. Like, I think though that you're right, that sometimes the people who want to be like, woe is me, I'm a female in poker, it's so hard, everyone, whatever. There are some good things. There are obviously some good things. Like, even just opportunities I get to have. Like, there's good things about it too. And yeah, like, there are definitely people who like have missed out on a lot of value versus me because they're just like, oh, I like her. Like, we're friendly at the table, and I'm not going to value bet her here. And so I think there is some of that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask Liv Burry, I don't know if you've seen her on Golden Balls. Have you seen that?
That was awesome.
That was so cutthroat. I mean, I was like, this poor guy, like, she's just lying to his face, and but at the same time, like, it's just game theory. Yeah, you have to basically go for steal and just pray that the other person leaves it. I wouldn't want to play on the show because I think it's so different from poker. I think it's like almost a little bit an immoral game. Like, you just have to, like, for me, poker bluffing is not lying. It's just taking a line, right? You're just taking a bet sizing choice, whatever, for whatever hand you have, and just making a strategic option. Actually, I don't feel like I'm lying or anything. And honesty is a pretty important thing to me. So yeah, I'm also not answering questions when I'm in a hand. So like I am not lying in any way. So I'm just doing my poker thing. And whereas in that show, you clearly had to convince somebody that they are going to have to take a choice that will benefit you.
That's like,
it feels like actual stealing, right? You could
that's
as well.
the parameters of that game. Like
I know it's a game, but would you say the game should even be played? I mean, it's like literally a game based on dishonesty, right? It's like,
well, me and you were just talking about how we both love Survivor, and I would have absolutely no problem if I got in that game. If me and you got in that game together, we could be really good friends outside of the game. I have absolutely no problem lying to you in that game or using your own like weaknesses. I would look at it as a weakness if you're like, me and Jamie are friends, and like she would never do this to me. I'd be like, I'm gonna do this to you, man. It's like basically winner take all, and I want to win this game. And I think that sometimes the people who come back from there and they're really butthurt about how they've been treated in the game, I think that's a huge weakness. You're not a good player then if you can't separate gameplay from real life. I don't care if you spend 30 days hanging out and like getting water together and sleeping next to each other and all the other stuff. Going in that this is a game that like part of the strategy is being devious and like deceptive. And I think that is why that game is awesome. Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's not as extreme, I guess, as the other show, but I love Survivor 2, and I would love to. That's, I think, the one reason why I would love to be on that show, because I would love to see how I would behave because of my ethics and like trying to be honest, but then I'm trying to like how I would want to see how I would lie, basically. Like how would I try to deceive people, because I would clearly try to win the game in Survivor. I think I would manage it, but I would have to like understand, okay, how do I actually manage this in order not have to just do too much
of that. Just be honest. Let's say we get on the season together and we're like, listen, I'm going from 5 people on, you're fucked. Like, like saying that, like, you can trust me.
I don't know, but that's like a no-go in Survivor, isn't it? Like, you never tell somebody like they're voted off next. Like, you're always trying to deceive them.
But if you had an alliance from the beginning where you're just like, can we guarantee each other's safety through a certain number? And then you're just like, we'll have to see how the game shakes out after that. Like, I feel like those are the people who do the best. Like, I don't want to say any spoilers in case people haven't watched the last season, but the people who form like a very strong alliance with one person, realizing that at some point, like both of you
doesn't serve them. Yeah.
I think those are pretty honest alliances. I think those people are like really friends, and they like are doing everything in each other's best interest to get towards the end. And then at some point,
they're going to have to, when it comes down to 5-4 people in Survivor, and also even at the break of like 8 or the jury break is really interesting, because you want, obviously, the people you vote off to not feel bad about you, then that they would cast the vote towards you winning. So you're going to have to think about, well, if somebody actually naturally hates you in the beginning, you have to kick them out before it comes to the jury breaking point, because if they are in that jury, that's a vote -1 for you. That's pretty important. So I feel like that the natural alliances in the show Survivor are really important, because the chances are that those natural alliances coming strong together until the end will also both ways work in terms of casting votes for each other. Even if you are basically backstabbing in that game, someone had 4 left, chances are still that they're going to say, okay, like, fair play, you won, that's it. Sometimes it's also about like just winning one of the challenges down to 4 and being immune and be casting.
That's the part I don't like as much, is that
no, I think that's a great aspect. I
think at the end it starts to become less about strategical things you've done during the game, and more like, oh, you're good at a puzzle or you're strong. And it's like, I don't know.
The puzzle thing, or strong, it is, but I think it's a whole more better rounded game that it has those elements. It's like saying in poker, well, the guy with deuces can't win against aces, right? Like, you have the same a little bit of luck element also, that the challenges are going to be random, and you're going to have to just accept what hand you're dealt with and what outcome you're dealt with. But there's a lot of things that you can control, and also like in the strategic elements, there's just some lineups that you could be in at the beginning that you're totally screwed. Like, for example, Garrett, also as a poker player, he was fucked in that show where he was at. He was totally screwed. Like he would just make everyone feel insecure.
Yeah.
But he was also a little bit his fault. Like he came across as like this.
A little bit his fault.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, it's just also, his looks made everyone feel insecure,
I know that's one aspect of it. I thought it was so funny. I didn't know him before watching his season, and now it's a lot funnier because I watched that and I was like, whoa, he did the thing that like no women like this, being told by the like buff, handsome guy, listen, 3 women, we're doing this and it makes sense and you're gonna do it. And like that's how he came across. And I'm watching that and I'm like, wow, they actually voted him out before the crazy lady who burned all their food.
Oh yeah, that season was hilarious for sure.
Yeah, and now knowing Garrett's personality, that is so crazy that that's the line he took, because he's just a nice guy, like, and very thoughtful and considerate and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's wild that on that show he thought that that was the best play to make there, because I was like, man, you must have been tired and starving, because that is crazy.
I mean, that's also when I saw it. I mean, he was on Joe Ingram's podcast just a couple months ago, and I thought he was like totally different. Like I totally like, because I knew him from Survivor and a little bit playing. I thought he was, but then on there he was just a totally different dude and totally honest about where he's at and just such an open personality, outgoing, and that was so surprising to me because I knew him from Survivor. So.
Discount though the hangry factor, right? When you haven't eaten, how many times do you really feel at your worst? Like I've felt it before in law school. If I stayed up 24 hours to write a paper or something like that, I'm not going to be a nice person when I run into someone. I'm not like, oh, hi, I haven't seen you in a while. I'm just like, please let me go to bed. Like, I just want to get through this. They probably feel like that multiple days in a row, where it's just like, like not eating and not sleeping. I'm surprised more people don't just spaz out and do crazy things on that show.
Yeah, that's true. That there's so many elements that I think also the uncertainty is really attractive to Survivor, the show, because you don't know what you're getting. It's like a new life starting. Do you also know that do you know Wayward Pines, the show? It's also something that I've thought, the guy, I was in the US studying in 2012. I was there with a homestay family, and they introduced me to Survivor. And they also, like the guy, he basically sent me some episodes of not Westworld, but Wayward Pines. And I thought that show was really great because it's basically creating this idea of people being postponed like 2,000 years from now. And you're just waking up and everyone else is dead, except for all the people within the city of Wayward Pines. And I think that idea is so great. And then it portrays the idea of how people would react. And some people actually shine in that new world, like with their new gained power, because in the old world, they didn't have power. And now all of a sudden, they're really motivated. And some other people, they're destroyed because in this new world, and they're no longer in charge. And it makes some hypotheses on young people, on older people, how they would deal with such a change. And I thought that was a fascinating show to me.
We're sort of experiencing something like that right now, right? Like how different the world has been for the last 2 months. And like I've reached out to some friends who are just 20 times more social than me. I'm very I can be extroverted for short periods of time. I do enjoy other people and stuff, but I could easily spend 10 days reading and playing poker and not really talking to anyone. So like that shakeout has been super weird. Like some of my friends are depressed because they were the going out 5 days a week people, and like they are dying to have something open for them to do. And then I think that some people are looking at it like they're in prison. Like everything has changed so much. It like reminded me of the show you're talking about. And like some people are like, I'm coming out of prison jacked, right? I'm going to work out and study and be better. And other people are just like sitting around getting fat, waiting for this to be over with. And it is weird. Like, I don't know. I wonder if poker players on average are better to adjusting to these like life situations that you can get dealt randomly than other people who just want routine.
I think there's a lot learned from this crisis on an individual basis, that you just try to adapt. I mean, and I think, as you say, as a poker player, it's probably easier depending on how adaptive you were before that too. Like, can you deal with the fact that you can no longer play live poker? Can you play online poker? Do you have the skill set for it? And then now to realize that you have opportunities and that you are not you're not doomed, right? And I think telling yourself that you do have opportunities is something really important. If you tell yourself the opposite, you're heading down a really bad slope. And
yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm very surprised poker players have not dominated Survivor, and it's been the opposite. Poker players have been fucking awful at Survivor. Like, I thought that would be a thing where I realized this when I went to a wedding. This is so long ago because I've been in a relationship for like 100 years now, but I went to a wedding as a date with someone I had just been seeing a little while, and he was in the wedding. So I was at a table with strangers and I was dreading it. And then I sat down and I just like got to know everyone, and it was really fun, and had drinks with them, and it was like a really great night. And then I realized, oh my God, like this isn't scary at all. This is every day I play live. You sit down and you meet a table full of strangers, and you find things you have in common, and you find the people who like to chat, and you leave the people alone who don't like to chat. And I just felt like that is a thing we repeat over and over again when we play live. So I felt like going into Survivor, I would be like that, where you just go, okay, like give me my batch of people. Let's figure out the people that I get along with, and whatever else. And I felt like poker players would crush that aspect. It has been.
Who's your favorite player? Who was your favorite player, by the way, on Survivor? Like almost all time.
Of all time.
I know somebody who I would vote.
I know there's so many good ones though. Like I think Parvati's amazing, but it's like such a standard answer because she's just like fun, and she just backstabs and no one really ever sees it coming. Boston Rob though is just like, he has the charisma and the like being able to control and manipulate people down so well. Like he's a target and he somehow survives super late until he has a chance. Like how does that happen? I don't know. Who's your favorite?
I like Cochran.
Yeah, the super cerebral guy.
Yeah, because he said something to the other guy who was like who was with him on his show, but he said something to him like, because I think when they were down to the interview part of the jury part, he was asked like, what made you more likely to win this game? And he said something like, well, probably his degree of insecurity that made him more likely to not be perceived as a threat by the other contestants.
It makes you accessible to people. Like everyone who's insecure at some point, that like he's more accessible to them. You're like, okay, this guy is worried. Like you kind of don't go after the person who shows some humility and worry about their own game. That's where I'm like, Boston Rob's a genius, because how does he not get killed right away instantly?
Yeah, because he's like totally outgoing and like yeah.
I want to play so bad. I feel like we should just poker players organizing just
but at the same time, I would never want to play with people that actually know me. Okay. Because I don't think that's kind of fair, right? I would want to play with people where I have a blank page and they know nothing about me, and I can just make my persona up, because then I have like a free game. I can come up with so many things about myself. I'm sure, you can tell that I'm probably not American. Like I've learned my English a little bit at school and in Australia, and I'm going to have like German accent, Australian influence, and then a little bit in the US. But apart from that, I could be probably whoever I want to be in some way, except for my personality and some things that I can change about my body language maybe. But that's what I would want to play. And I think if you know somebody, it's just like too much information, and then it's like the strategic background. Yeah, I think you seem like you like the escapism factor of it too. Maybe. That you get put there, you get to just decide how you want to portray yourself, and there's no ties to any of your real personality or life. If you want to go there and be like, I'm a garbage man, then you're a garbage man for 39 days. Cool. That's a really appealing aspect of it for me too. It's kind of a fun idea, I think, escapism in poker. Have you ever think that was true for you as well within poker, that it was a form of escapism? Yeah. Well, yeah. When I ditched my whole life and moved to Mexico, that was pretty escapist of me. but yeah, that too is that like online poker felt like that. When you're anonymous and you get to just try this new job, see if you're good at it, and like whatever, and no one really knows who's behind the keyboard. I think that is a cool part of it. That actually, I should have mentioned that when we were talking about getting more women into poker. When online poker is robust and like beatable and it's available everywhere in the US, that definitely has an effect, because people get some hands under their belt before they have to go get looked at as like an other when you're the only woman at the table or whatever.
I think that's really important, and I wish that the U.S. would get their act together. It's free tax revenue. We're just like dropping the ball there by not letting people play.
How would your life look today if you had $100 million? How would it look differently?
I would have a pit bull rescue, and I would do like, if I $100 million, I feel like I could like end the problem where people just like put animals outside to die. That's like not a huge expensive problem. You should see some of these rescues that pop up. There's one in Aruba that was just going to be a small operation. It's called Sergeant Pepper's Friends. And a woman started it. She lost her favorite pet. Just the pet died, and she started a rescue where she takes all the animals that are brought to this like kill cage they have there. They have a thing where you could drop off animals that are stray, and they'll euthanize them humanely, but it's still terrible because sometimes puppies, like adoptable pets, will be in there. And she just rescues all of them, and she started this thing, and it's huge now, and it's not expensive. Dogs and cats, they live on like less than $1 a day. It's not an expensive thing. If I had $100 million, that could be a solution to all that, because I'm already like good at the social media aspect where I feel like rehoming animals wouldn't be that hard. You just have to like spam their pictures to everyone who might want them. But that, that's what I would do if I had that much money. And I think even if I build up a decent bankroll, that's going to be the next thing that I do that I spend a lot of my time on.
Okay. Where can people find you on all social media?
I'm just at Jamie Kerstetter on Twitter. I'm at Jamie Likes Dogs on Instagram. Okay. And I don't really mess around with Facebook or anything, so that's about it.
And who do you think would be a great guest for the Poker Player podcast here in the future?
Oh, it's a good question. Let me think. I have to pick a woman after all this woman talk, right? I think, have you had Chrissy?
Yeah, anyway. No.
I think Chrissy. I want to hear more stuff from Chrissy, because I think she doesn't share a ton of her personality with everyone, because she's just a very serious poker player and she's always talking about poker. And honestly, if I went to hit her up, I'd probably ask her something strategy related, because I'd be the annoying person who hits you up and who's like, what would you do in this spot? Like, I would probably hit her up for that before I'd hit her up with like, hey, like, tell me about your life. So I think she doesn't really get to share too much about her personal life and stuff, and I'd like to hear what it looks like.
All right. I also want to give you the last word for the Poker Player podcast. Is there something that you would want to have differently in poker, or some impact in poker that you want to have?
Okay, so like touching back on things we talked about earlier, I wish more of the good people in poker were highlighted instead of the flashiest people, instead of the old schoolist people. I really wish that there was more development of some of these awesome all-around human beings who happen to be crushing, and that we just develop them into superstars instead of going with the superstars of 20 years ago just because we're lazy.
Okay, thank you very much for being a guest on the Poker Player podcast. I hope that you guys afterwards, you can always watch this on YouTube as it's recorded, and I'm also going to put it on Anchor so you can listen to this podcast over there as well.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.